There are a lot of things that are fundamental to anime as a medium. It's sometimes vibrant and bombastic character designs, the tendency to have extremely distinct visual styles, its very goofy and over-the-top style of humor, the treasure trove of tropes that anime has become known for that still seem to work to this day, for better or for worse. Okay, sorry, I'm just really trying to stretch out the first 60 seconds of this video. Otherwise, YouTube is immediately going to take it down due to the subject matter. Okay. Are we at a minute? No, not quite. I mean, it's close enough. It's also known for sometimes being softcore porn, in some cases, as well, actual porn in others. Now, porn addiction is not a trivial issue, though it's likely not as common as some people make it out to be. A lot of people genuinely do struggle with that addiction and its consequences, and it's a topic used as a cudgel when it comes to discussions like these, whether they be physical, like literally hurting yourself, or if they might express themselves socially, like having unrealistic expectations from relationships or sexual encounters. And embroiled in porn addiction has the gooner become. If you're, alive, seriously, if you take part in society whatsoever, you've heard about gooners. As porn addiction becomes a more globally recognized issue, so too does gooning, but what even is gooning? I think partially gooning has become a way to refer to more risque things in a more advertiser-friendly way, at least as far as stuff like YouTube AI is concerned, but in recent times, a gooner is someone who practices gooning. Okay, that's a little... It initially referred to edging for long periods of time, but it's basically been hijacked to colloquially refer to people being horny online. This was a bit of a longer preamble than usual for my videos, so let's get to the point. Why is everything called gooning these days? You'll notice it a lot, especially in anime circles, because any design that shows a bit of skin will have some people coming out of the trenches to call it gooner pilled, or that you're a gooner for liking it, or even worse, gooner bait. The only thing I can wonder, though, isn't that a bit regressive? Let's talk about feminism. People think of this movement only as equality for women, when in reality it's more so the equality of the sexes. It's just that 9 times out of 10, women are the social group that are disadvantaged in any given conversation. The common thought is that society suffers harshly from its patriarchal structure, and contrary to right-wingers on Twitter, they also believe men suffer from that structure as well. It's just that women suffer a whole lot more, and in different ways. In fact, in Japan in the 1960s, Mitsu Tanaka would write a pamphlet known as Liberation from Toilets, in which she equates women's roles in society as being a dumping ground for men's bodily fluids. Of course, both men and women can be sexually objectified, and honestly, I don't really want to have to add these little disclaimers throughout the script about how men can be victims too. Just know that I do believe men can be victims, and they are victims of the patriarchy, just not as much as women. Women, far more often than men, find themselves targeted by sexual objectification to the point of blatant dehumanization. Through marketing, in movies, in TV shows, in games, throughout history, women are very frequently seen not as a person with their own attributes, qualities, skills, likes, and dislikes, but as an object of heteronormative male sexual desire. That was one of the angles that feminism worked, to let it be known that they are more than their bodies, but also that if they so choose, they can sexualize themselves without it being at the behest of a man. This is where what is known colloquially as puritanism comes in. I say colloquially because, from my knowledge, Puritans weren't actually anti-sex, besides out of wedlock, of course. Then you're going to hell. That's the work of Satan, but that's what they became known as. As women fought for their own sexual independence, heavily religious and conservative viewers bit back, laying seeds of cultural doubt that would stay even in the modern day. Think of how many times you might have seen a situation where a man is praised for sleeping with multiple people, while a woman is called a whore for doing the same thing. Modern patriarchal society created a power dynamic where men were in charge of defining sex and female bodily autonomy, and one can watch the changing tides live via what was acceptable content in our home media. Old movies were known for cheap gore effects and throwing half-naked women at the screen, whereas new ones have experienced a whiplash of hyper-realistic gore, slasher content, and a distinct lack of sexuality compared to the older peers. In my eyes, there's been a bit of a distinct overcorrection within the younger progressive scene. Instead of seeing self-sexualization as a method of taking back your own bodily autonomy and not letting yourself be under the thumb of the patriarchy, all sexualization is now seen by some as inherently problematic, putting all sexual encounters or content under the microscope, as it is admittedly a risky social situation where one opens himself up to exploitation and abuse. Personally, I think part of this overcorrection could be traced back to COVID. Teenagers and young adults more or less missed their most formative years being completely isolated and locked inside during a time of self-exploration and expression, which has ultimately led to them having less sex statistically, which has led to some younger people having a strange relationship with it, and their only ideas of sexuality formed while inside on the internet, so through porn or through seeing what amounted to a sexual revolt online, as 16 to 20-year-olds who would normally be out living their lives were now forced to sit down and be faced with the continued culture war of Gamergate, otherwise known as the Cold Goon. In response to women fighting for the right to be respected and not be treated as a piece of meat, the generals and gooner-in-chief doubled down and attacked any depiction of a woman that wasn't inherently sexual. The Puritan right would buck what was expected of them, instead saying we need more softcore porn, rather than following the generally religious viewpoint of no more porn. Not in a genuine attempt to get off, but instead as a way to make feminism lose and to continue to have power over women. Let me make something clear before we get any deeper into this video. I am by no means defending some of the shit anime or video games get up to. I think there are overblown instances where people overreact due to sexualized female characters, but for every one of those, there are probably 2 downright strange and problematic sexual portrayals. However, we're forced to come to a pause here and wonder how far our overcorrection has gone, and we have to ask if someone even expressing a sex drive or being sexually active, something so fundamental to the human experience for so many people for so many years, is really cause for concern in itself. Things that people have fought to have recognized as not inherently sexual or demeaning are now kind of starting to circle back to that point, despite it also coming from progressives, in which sexual liberation was originally closely tied. To be frank, I think this is also another symptom of COVID. Would it have happened without it? I don't know, dude, I'm not Doctor Strange. However, while people were locked indoors with nothing to do, they were exposed to radical content pushed to them through YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and so on and so forth, as their algorithms made them double down and cherry-pick beliefs. I spoke about this in one of my previous videos, but people are confusing their strongly held beliefs with actual knowledge, and thinking that a collection of information is the same as education. So what we've come to understand is a generation of young adults who were vaguely introduced to the ideas of certain ideologies without having any actual appreciation or understanding of them. We're actually seeing it right now as the horse game gets wildly popular, it instantly being equated to a gooner game because I guess they're all women, and to be honest, having played the game, the sexualization in this game is on the extremely tame and almost non-existent side for an anime-adjacent product, and the only thing I can imagine is that people see a game that has an exclusively female cast and immediately equate it to being sexualized. On one hand, it's anime, so I kinda get where the suspicion comes from, but there's also nothing that indicates this, especially when half the edits are of Goldship being a silly horse. When talking about shit as terminally online as horse game, Goldship and anime sexualization, one must also ponder, is this real discourse, or are we just, really online? Does this gooner outrage actually exist? And for that, we have to go back to the ongoing culture war. Realistically, the inherent sexualization and objectification of women is still an issue, especially in the right-wing whiplash decade of the 2020s, as we watch grifters like Grums and Asmongold try to push the tired line of keep gaming sexy or whatever the fuck they're talking about, intentionally ignoring all the time sexualized portrayals are still in gaming while farming outrage over Silent Hill 2. To those not in the loop, this is something I also discussed in a prior video, but the Silent Hill 2 remake suffered backlash from conservatives because Angela wasn't sexy enough, with people like Rev Says Desu targeting it and taking developer quotes out of context to try and paint the image that they were trying to wokeify the game or whatever. Conservatives and anti-feminists would then latch onto the depiction of Angela and make a big fuss about the lack of sexualization in Silent Hill 2 while ignoring the elephant in the room that is Maria, a character that exists as a sexual depiction as it plays into the narrative theme of James, the protagonist character. To clarify, Silent Hill 2 is a game about trauma. The protagonist, James, had a sick wife who passed away before the game's events, and is called at the town of Silent Hill because he received a letter from her despite her death. Throughout his wife's illness, James began to develop resentment for his wife as her caretaker, and as she is no longer confident, forward, and also due to the lack of their sexual relationship, which is what causes Silent Hill 2 to have so many overt sexual themes, and is why Maria even exists, since she's not actually real, but instead serves as the idealized version of the wife that James felt he lost to the illness. Angela is a character in Silent Hill at the same time as James, and unlike Maria, is actually real. She was also called here due to her underlying guilt, however, for many different reasons. She is a victim of sexual abuse and is implied to have killed those responsible for hurting her, something she holds immense guilt over. Her narrative serves as a foil for James, who has to grapple with the guilt of his actions, both of them having to find the right way to move forward, with Angela's being a total succumb to the guilt that follows her before taking her own life at the end of the game. What we saw from the right during Silent Hill 2's release cycle was an inconsistent attachment to a non-sexual depiction in Angela, in an effort to bend women that don't exist to please them to their will. Something also demonstrated by some of the remake mods that came out immediately after, making Angela sexier, or edits to her face to make her more conventionally attractive, ignoring that her story is the fairly tragic one about sexual violence, something they absolutely don't know about because they're tourists. Also, they can ignore the actually sexually charged characters like Maria, because at the end of the day, They're still Puritans who want to express control over women, and they don't like that Maria is actually in charge of her own sexualization and body. To the people that progressives try to attack as gooners, like Mark Goons, it doesn't actually accomplish anything, because they aren't trying to goon. It's a method of control, and an accusation they will wear on their sleeve to shift the topic, while the progressive, adjacent people we slap with the gooner label are people just having a sex drive, and causing unnecessary infighting over insignificant topics like finding a woman hot. At the end of the day, I understand that the goon war on the progressive side comes from a good place. It comes from a want to let women be recognized as something else, and it comes from an informed perspective on how sexual activity can very much lead to harmful outcomes. But the fact of the matter is, sexual activity is not alone. All of human interaction, something that is essential and integral to the human experience, can lead to harmful outcomes. Some more than others, of course. And while it can be scary, it's what necessarily leads to us forming bonds and understanding the human condition. I know a lot of people will take issue with me equating sexual expression to something fundamental to human expression, and I get it. I don't mean to exclude asexual people by any means, which is something I've actually discussed with people who have a more intimate understanding of the topic than I do, where I was told that asexuality is in itself a part of their sexual expression, and I really do appreciate those people in the Discord who inform me of this, by the way. I think everyone understands how deeply intertwined sexual expression in human society is. To the rest of the people that might be upset about it, well, they're probably 17. Not their fault. I was told a long time ago that if you summarize your point at the end of the script, it's a bad script. Unfortunately, I think that's bullshit. We should not be drawing an arbitrary line at human sexual self-expression, and instead should be saving our anger and criticism towards those who make it very clear they are purely self-motivated by the notion of restricting a woman's autonomy. Carter Sherman, a journalist who interviewed 100 teenagers and young adults to ask about their relationship with sex, came away with some interesting conclusions. Many of them struggle with the idea of sexual activity as abortion became illegal in some places in the US. Many of them struggle with their relationship with porn, causing an unhealthy relationship with sex. Many of them struggle like that even more since porn is their only access to sexual education, considering they live in an abstinence-only sex ed state, or from bad experiences where people don't know how to communicate, and even less so after a global pandemic. Are people on Twitter who are calling everyone a gooner largely contributing to the rise of sex negativity? I would say it doesn't help, and is a symptom of the times that we live in, where some progressives have it backwards in a time of religious backlash and sexual conservatism. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Graphia with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.